All right. So there's a couple not big Commanders news, but a couple of news tidbits today. I want to start with Carl Davis. They bring him back at the defensive tackle spot. Is there much to this, or is this just another body at D tackle?
I just think it's another body until we hear otherwise. I mean, he's a guy that's been around the league. He was one of the players that filled in last year when they had some injuries, Jonathan Allen and others. And if you had told me they had re-signed him, a couple months ago, I'd have been like, sure. I mean, my only wonder is, like, if you look at the defensive line, I know everybody's lamenting that they haven't done enough at defensive end and so on, but like they actually have like a lot of bodies. If we're going to say can you make the 53 roster out of these guys? So I don't like, typically if somebody's going to sign you, who's played a bit, you think, okay, there's got to be sort of a semi-obvious path to make the team. I don't really see one for him, but again, long way to go. Injuries happen. Who knows what their ultimate plans are with a couple of players. So yeah, I think it's just depth at a minimum for the summer. And again, it's somebody who's been around, and maybe they put him on the practice squad when the time comes, to have that veteran presence in case they need it.
Will he be at OTAs this week?
I would assume so if you're announcing it today. I mean, like, again, to the point of how come they haven't signed Matthew Judon or, one of these vets that's still out there. It's because those guys don't want to be part of OTAs and minicamp. I mean, unless the team is coming at them with like a legit offer, like a real, more than the sort of the baseline offers that are out there, they don't want any part of this stuff. Whereas a guy like Davis, I would imagine, hey, he's happy to get a call. So yeah, I presume he would be there this week.
Is that, do you think, one of the reasons why Terry McLaurin has been absent the past couple of days from OTAs?
It could be. I mean, it could be a lot of reasons why he's out. I think in this town, even going back before this group, we have made such a big deal about who shows up for OTAs and all these things, which again are voluntary, in large part because the percentage of players that come is very, very high typically. But I was looking around, like one of a reporter I follow on social media covers Tampa Bay, and he was saying that I guess they're at practicing today, that like they have like maybe 75 players there, and he was noting like some of the notable players that were in attendance, and it didn't sound like a lot of it wasn't like Mike Evans. I don't know if Mike Evans is there or not, but he didn't list him when saying here are some of the names that are here. So I think, and I know the Ravens are kind of the same way. Like, I think a lot of teams it's not nearly a stigma to be like, hey, this guy is not around. Whereas here, and granted, we understand with Terry, there's something else going on in terms of a contract discussion, and maybe that, is part of something. But yeah, I don't think it's a big deal with McLaurin for whatever the reason he's not here. I'm kind of the mindset, wake me up when we get to training camp if he still doesn't have a deal. But other than that, I imagine something will get done. And if he's not there, God bless him. It's not, it's not some major red flag. It certainly wouldn't be in a lot of teams around the league.
I was going to ask you when the benchmark is, because I'm not worried about Terry not being at OTAs. Doesn't really bother me. We've kind of seen this before. I mean, he was there earlier. He was throwing with Jaden. We get the feeling he wants to be here. We get the feeling the team wants him here. The rest feels like semantics. But if we do get to training camp and there is no deal, is it then time to move the panic meter at least a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, if we get all the way that deep and nothing's happened, that would be something to note. I mean, even still, he's. I'm not really worrying about it, I guess, on any level. I mean, like they what have we heard? What's like the one refrain we've heard a lot in the last, recent weeks and months, that Dan Quinn and Adam Peters now know what it means to be a commander. They have identified commanders. There's a talking point that people, even on the business side of things, mention when it comes to this team. Well, if you're going to put somebody on the poster for what it means to be a commander, how is it not Terry McLaurin? Not only is he highly productive, but, a role model, a locker room leader, does all the right things, great in the community, like everything about it screams, this guy is player you want to position as somebody to follow. And then on top of that, the biggest thing this team has done this offseason is continue to build around Jaden Daniels, right? Offensive line, Deebo Samuel, et cetera. And granted, McLaurin has a contract for this year, but why would you not that's building around Jaden Daniels. To take him away or to potentially have it such that he could walk after the year, that would go against the plan. So I would, I'm not fretting at all about this not getting done. But yeah, sure. I mean, we live in a world of business and commerce, and at some point something has to get done. But again, wake me up at training camp if nothing's happened yet.
We were talking with Ben Standig here on the Kevin Sheehan Show, with Denton sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. Now, the team did announce its preseason schedule, and I'm not like a schedule connoisseur of any kind, Ben. I didn't do a mock preseason schedule, none of that. But I do find it odd that they have week 1 and 2 of the preseason 10 days away, and then week 2 and 3 of the preseason 5 days away. That seems weird.
Yeah, I think, again, as much as I'm going to get the outrage over a preseason schedule, it does feel like Washington got hosed here. Not only are the second game is a Monday night, which really, come on, NFL, you have to put them on Monday night. You have them on every other national television game. It's Monday Night Football in the preseason. Calm down. But then, it's a literal night game, as we know, right? So that's Monday. And then 5 days later on the calendar, but really less than that, because it's a Monday night game, and then the next game is a noon kickoff. They're playing again. Now, even if we assume that the Jaden Daniels and the other starters and main players won't play a lick, what about it still sucks for everybody else. This is the last game to try to make the team, to show what you're doing. And now you have to do it on short rest when at a point where it's never good, but you're only just sort of getting used to hitting guys again. It's a complete. I think they got completely hosed here on this on both fronts. I think it's a pretty lousy situation. I also think, I don't know that anything would have happened for sure, but I know there was at least some thought of hey, could we do joint practices with the Ravens? Like they have in the past, would make sense. Well, you can't do it now. I mean, not with only that short time. So that's another potential thing they got hosed on, that even if they truly wanted to have that, it was impossible to do it.
That was going to be something I brought up. One, I mean, this is the NFL once again showing us that safety is a top priority with the 4.5 days basically, but that eliminates the Ravens as a potential joint practice. Have you heard any conversations? I know, at least I believe, that Vrabel and Dan Quinn have some sort of relationship. Could there be a joint practice with New England?
Yeah, I think the Patriots, I think you can look for that to occur. I think that one is, you can probably pencil in at least for sure. So yeah, they will have at least one, I believe. But yeah, I mean, the schedule just doesn't lend itself to having another one. And the Ravens one, I mean, obviously maybe you can't do it every single year for whatever the reasons, but that's just such a no-brainer, right? For both sides, it's minimal travel, all that, and yet now it gets now you can't because of the calendar, even if you wanted to. So yeah, and that's a tough blow there. I mean, it's clear that Dan Quinn, as a lot of coaches do, likes the joint practices, and I think we all understand why. So yeah, at least they're going to do the one, but it's at the top of the preseason. Maybe it'd be a little bit better to have a little bit later, but at least they're going to get the one in. It looks like.
Talking with Ben Standig of The Athletic here on the Kevin Sheehan Show, with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on a Tuesday on the Team 980. Are there any storylines in particular that have your interest as we approach OTAs outside of Terry McLaurin's contract status?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's not so much about the X's and the O's, and it's more just about the individual players, who's healthy, who looks like they have been putting on some bulk, some weight, or possibly the opposite. I think those are the things that I'm most interested in. And I think I can't get too worked up about where people are lining up, who's on first team, second team, but the offensive line will be kind of an interesting look. Does Josh Connerly start to get the reps with the first unit? Where does Brandon Coleman line up? I think that, to me, is going to be interesting. And and again, I would probably just say, like, is Marshawn Lattimore going full speed? A guy who missed a bunch of time last year, not just last year, but several years in a row with hamstring injuries. Where is he at now? I'm not saying you give him a pass off of last year after the trade, but okay, you can maybe give him a little bit of a pass. He was dealing with an injury when they got him, et cetera. But now, it's months away. You should be out there all the time. Hopefully he's not getting like days off or anything along those lines. That would be a bit of a red flag. So to me, it's just mostly things along those lines. And I think the other part for me would be, what's the vibe? It's always positive at this time of year. It's like, spring training in baseball. But last year there was a little extra. You could tell, at least I could, that the holdover players had an extra pep in their step being around Dan Quinn and the new vibe. And not that like you would expect anything different, but what's the vibe this year? It seems like everybody's still in a good spirit, good mood. I don't get any sense of anybody coming in with like a big head or anything like that. But let's just see what are people saying. What's the tone, et cetera? Because that can be the sort of an underlying sense of how this team is operating. But those are the types of things I'm going to focus on more than say, wow, the defense, the run defense looks much improved. I mean, there's no pads. You can't tell anything for real at this time of the year. So that's kind of what I'd be paying attention to.
How much, if any, danger is Luke McCaffrey and in losing his either return spot or what few snaps he did get last year to Jalen Lane?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely possible. I mean, he was pretty effective returning kicks late in the year, so I would think he would at a minimum be still part of that. And then as far as the receiver rotation, after Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, and probably Noah Brown, I think it seems pretty open. Like Jalen Lane, because of that speed, it feels like there would be a specific opportunity for him, a specific role. But I'm not going to rule out Luke McCaffrey. If he takes a leap, last year was only his third year as a receiver because he switched in college from quarterback. So he's still learning the position. And, I thought times last year was like he felt like he was on the verge of a breakout a lot of weeks, and then it just never quite happened. So he's definitely one of those guys I'm curious to see, how does he come into camp? Does he look a bit, sharper with what he's asked to do out there? So, look, you can't play everybody. And, if you want to include Michael Gallup or KJ Osborne, perhaps, as guys who could also force their way into the rotation, sure. But, I think McCaffrey's going to get every chance to be able to have a role. But, we'll see. Again, with Jalen Lane, they're different types of players, but there's only so many snaps to go around. So let's see how that goes. But I think I think he has at least a good chance to stay where he was last year, if not get a little more work.
Basketball question here for you. Can anybody beat the Thunder?
Oh boy. So I think like what was impressive to me about last night, like I have not been like all in on the Thunder the way a lot of people have been. Now, admittedly, I didn't watch a ton of Thunder games during the year, and the record was obviously very impressive. But I've been concerned about their youth. Like they don't have. I mean, obviously SGA is a hell of a player, and they have a lot of talent, but you saw in the Denver series how Denver was able to, I think, sort of, take the maturity angle that they have as guys who, won the title and use that to their advantage. I thought last night was impressive for the Thunder. They seemed to come out from the jump and not only not be afraid of the moment, but be really engaged. And they were, Minnesota was facing an uphill battle all game. I think, though, that both the Knicks and Indiana, whichever one comes out of the East, both of them have a lot of resolve. They're both, I think, pretty, they play with a lot of energy and effort. And I think that's the type of team that could potentially get the Thunder. But, and Indiana also has a lot of depth, which is Oklahoma City's real strength along with their defense. Like they just can throw body after body. So I think Indiana would have a shot. And I think the Knicks wouldn't be crazy to me either, but certainly the Thunder, they just have so much talent, so many bodies, and with SGA, if he keeps making shots, that obviously going to be a very tough out.
Do you think the Knicks tie the series up tonight? I kind of take a lot of joy in watching them lose, so I was a little upset that they came back in Game 3.
Yeah, we've seen an inordinate amount of these 20-point leads disappearing, and in a lot of cases, I think it's fair to use the choke word. I wouldn't do that in this last game. I mean, Indiana's offense wasn't at nearly as good as it had been in the first two games, but I just thought the Knicks, that right before the first half when they cut it from 20 to 13 was a big stretch. And then, Karl Anthony Towns had a monster fourth quarter, and their defense was tremendous, the Knicks. And that's the thing, we always talk about the offense of the NBA, but between the Knicks, the Pacers, the Thunder, we got some of the really impressive defensive teams here. And, I think Indiana wins tonight. I think they take that 3-1 lead. But, if the Knicks defense shows up like it did from the start, then we very much could be looking at a 2-2 series. But I think Indiana finds a way to get it done.
Are you a Timothée Chalamet fan the way that I am now? I'm not like a huge fan of his movies just because I'm not a big movie guy, but it feels like this guy's living my 12-year-old dream.
Well, I mean, he's certainly doing well for himself. If you had to pick the heir to the Leonardo DiCaprio, star in big movies, date attractive women, and just although he's taking it to a different level, whereas DiCaprio is completely hides himself off screen. Chalamet out in front with the Knicks fan base, to the point where he's getting dragged out of his car after they won the previous series against the Celtics. Yeah, he's definitely taken advantage of it all, and I respect it. I mean, I know he grew up in New York. Obviously, I have no idea what kind of fan he truly was, but he seems like a fairly normal person in this regard. It doesn't feel like we see some celebrities. You're like, are you really a fan? Or are you just kind of putting on the sweatshirt and saying you are? In this case, it feels like authentic. So, he's having a great time, and kudos to him.
He was a total blog boy. The people have gone back because how the internet is, how it is. They found him on message boards when he was 13 years old.
He rushed down to Grand Central Station to get tickets to meet Landry Fields and Andy Routens. So
that'd be like me rushing to meet Jarvis Hayes.
Yeah.
That's all. That's great. I mean, like I said, the authenticity with this stuff is what's key. It's there's nothing worse than fake fans that celebrities that try to show up at when the team gets good. Be curious to see what happens here, for example, with the Jaden Daniels. People like McConaughey. They were already in. Dale Jr. We knew they were fans when the team was terrible. So let's see if who possibly shows up now. But no, yeah, that's great if he's that into it. I mean, I certainly, as somebody who's been into these things my whole life, it's great to see other people have that sickness, and good for him.
Ben, we appreciate it. We started you with a lemonade conversation. We ended you with Timmy Chalamet. Hard-hitting journalism only here on the Kevin Sheehan Show, but we appreciate it nonetheless.
Keep me on my toes, and you are on time, Dan. You're doing a good job. Thanks, man.
That is Ben Standig of The Athletic. He's good enough to join us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show.